Hello, everyone. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes to let some more people in, and then we will get started here soon. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for this exciting webinar, Online Reviews 101. I am Jenny Tukeski, the Programming and Communications Manager here at the Better Business Bureau Midwest Plains. We are so happy that you are going to be a part of this very informative webinar today. And we also just wanted to remind everyone to check out our website, bbbinc.org, throughout the year to see what other presentations and events we have going on. We are very grateful to have Myra, the Executive Vice President of the Review Solutions, with us with Third Coast Interactive. With Myra, she oversees the company's overall strategies and initiatives by working closely with global brands, collaborating with national associations and organizations comprised of businesses and business owners, as well as managing the partnership with the Better Business Bureau. Today, she will be discussing how reviews can successfully impact a business, the best practices for requesting a review, going over review response tactics, and more. So we ask that if you have any questions to please put them in the Q&A spot, and throughout the presentation, she will get to those for you. So we'll go ahead and get started. Myra, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you to everybody for joining us this afternoon. I want to point out that on the webinar with me today is Emily Elliott as well. She is on my team here at Third Coast Interactive, and she helps with the online reviews for accredited businesses. So if you have any questions today, like Jenny said, please drop it into the Q&A feature, and I will stop periodically throughout the presentation to see if there are any questions coming in. And occasionally, Emily might actually hop in and respond to a question directly. So we can go ahead and get started. Of course, the name of the webinar is Online Reviews 101. We talk about taking control of your online reputation. And I think for a lot of businesses, what that really means is getting a handle on your online reviews. And so I'm assuming if you've signed up for today's webinar that you at least acknowledge that online reviews are important. Just how important are they? Well, you don't have to take my word for it. So there's several different publications that do these types of surveys every year. And for about the past 5 years, the results have been pretty consistent, if not increasing. This particular set of stats on this page is going to be from Moz. Their local business review survey report, which they actually just started doing in 2023. So this is their inaugural one, but there are definitely a couple more publications that I will cite throughout this presentation that do similar types of surveys when it comes to consumers and their online habits. So based on what they found, 96% of consumers are reading online reviews. So for all intents and purposes, that's basically everybody, right? So everybody that is a potential customer reads reviews online, and an almost as big a percentage of that say that these reviews are important when deciding whether or not to trust a business. I also want to kind of encourage you. I know that you're joining this webinar as a business, whether you're a business owner or somebody who helps manage a business or is in charge of marketing for a business or somebody who's just part of a business. And think about your behaviors as a consumer, because again, I'm talking to you as a business, but a lot of the topics I'm going to talk about today focus on consumer behavior. And so just compare what I'm showing you to how you act online. For instance, you probably read online reviews and you probably use online reviews to decide whether or not you're going to trust a business. Okay. So again, and this one is from Bright Local's local consumer survey. So they typically come out with one by the end of January, early February. They haven't come out with their most recent one this year. So this is still from last year. But again, just based on the last few years, the results are pretty consistent in terms of what consumers are finding important, especially when it comes to businesses' online reputation. And in this case, we talked about consumers reading reviews and using those reviews to decide whether or not they can trust a business. But on top of that, they're actually starting to care when a review was written. So it's not enough to have a lot of reviews from a year ago or even a few months ago. You can see here in the same survey, almost half of consumers only really pay attention to reviews written within the past month, which is pretty staggering. I mean, I would say I feel like I would not have guessed it was that high of a percentage. Although, again, when you think about your own behaviors, when you're researching businesses online and reading their reviews, you know, there's a default sorting with most review sites. And I think what I do typically is sort from newest to oldest, or at least that's one of the ways that I look at reviews. And that's probably what you do too. And it only makes sense because if you think about it, you know, lots can change within a business, just even in the 2 or 3 months. And things like policy changes, if they change their pricing, if they change the types of services and products they offer, change in ownership, change in management, all of that can impact a customer's experience with the business. So it makes sense that when you're trying to determine what your experience might be if you were to patronize a business, that you compare it to somebody who was at the business most recently, right? So you probably are going to have more in common with experiences from a couple of weeks ago than from a couple of years ago. So that's just something to keep in mind. The reason I bring that up is because there are definitely businesses that think that because they have, you know, a lot of reviews online and they have a great rating, even though all those reviews are over a year old, they're perfectly fine. And this really just shows that getting reviews and continuing to put an emphasis on your online reputation at this point doesn't really stop. And it's something you have to keep working at regularly. And this slide says star rating matters, which again, probably goes without saying. I don't think anybody here thinks that star rating doesn't matter. But what's interesting here is if you take a look at that first stat, it's essentially over 3/4 of consumers think it's important for a business to have a higher star rating than the other businesses they're considering. So it's not enough to have, you know, a really high 4-star. Let's say you're like a 4.8. Your aggregate star rating, let's say, out of all the different review sites that your business is on. But if your competitors are higher than that, chances are that a potential customer is probably going to select them over your business, or at least more likely to select them over your business, everything else being equal. And again, I encourage you to think about your own behavior when it comes to comparing different businesses that you're considering, especially for services and products that require a lot of research, right? I always think about anything that's related to home improvement. So Those bigger projects typically take a little bit longer research. You probably have recommendations from your family and friends. And then at the end of the day, you also look at those businesses' online reviews. And what's interesting is, again, you think about your own behavior, ultimately, you're probably going to go with the business that's ranked the highest if everything else is equal, unless, you know, the ratings are extremely close together. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then in addition to that, customers, 60% of customers, in fact, will only consider businesses with a 4-star rating or higher. So if you don't have a 4-star rating or higher, and again, depending on the review site, sometimes if you're below a 4-star, even if you have like a 3.95, it looks like you have a 3-star. It really just depends on the review site you're looking at. But in that case, you're essentially removing yourself from contention from 40% of your potential customers if you're not focusing on getting your review star rating up. And I know that's easier said than done. Thankfully, this webinar is going to address that and hopefully give you some helpful tips so that you can raise your average star rating if you're a business that's struggling with a lower star rating right now. Okay. All right, a couple of other tidbits. I think the first one is really interesting because this is a fairly recent phenomenon, especially compared to how ubiquitous reviews have been just within the past decade. So I would say within maybe 10 years ago, it wasn't as important for businesses to respond to their reviews, and some review sites didn't really allow for a response from the business anyway, depending on what review site you were looking at, or the way that a business could respond was limited. And now 89% of customers are likely to use a business that responds to all reviews. And again, we are going to address responding to reviews later on in the webinar. But it's interesting that it's not enough to have a lot of reviews and a high star rating and recent reviews. And now you have to be responding to all the reviews you get. So I think the more that I present these stats, the clearer that it becomes that managing and really paying attention to your online reviews as a business just becomes part of running a business. So it's not just something that you can think about doing every couple of weeks. You're like, oh yeah, my reviews, you know, or once a month. It's really something that you have to be working at regularly. And then another thing here is, you know, 70% of consumers read anywhere from 5 to 20 positive reviews before deciding that a business is even worthy of consideration. And so again, you know, you have to have reviews online, they have to be recent, they have to be positive reviews, but you can't just have 2 or 3, right? Because I mean, I think that's the easiest way to maintain a really high star rating is just have few positive reviews. But in this case, consumers are starting to want businesses that have a lot of reviews. And to add to this, they like to go to different review sites as well. So they don't just stick to one review site, they kind of look at the business as a whole on the various review sites that they're on, make sure they have positive reviews on all of them, and that their star rating on all the different review sites is fairly positive. The good news is, you know, we keep talking about how much emphasis a customer, places on reviews. But as we see here, and this is not that dissimilar from similar, you know, other publications that really look into whether customers are writing reviews. And this says that 86% of consumers do write online reviews for businesses. So that's the good news. And even better is more than half of your customers, at least they say that they will always or usually write a review if asked. However, and to me, this is the stat that I have the hardest time believing, just because I feel like I've been asked to leave a review a lot by various businesses just within the past year, much less the past 5 years, right? But this says that almost 40% of consumers have not been directly asked to leave a review in the past 5 years. But you're in luck today, because that's one of the things that we'll definitely cover is how to ask your customers for reviews. Because again, we know that if you ask them, chances are they will leave you a review. Okay. I'm going to stop here just to see if anybody has any questions or comments about any of the stats that I just went over. Again, I think for most people, if they think about their own behaviors as a consumer, a lot of those statistics make sense. And for a lot of business owners, they're basically truths that they probably took for granted, but they just didn't know the statistical percentage that was associated with each item. Okay. So we talked about all of the things regarding consumers and how they look at reviews. And one of the things that I just mentioned was if you ask a customer for a review, they're more likely to leave you a review than not. And that's, I think, what a lot of businesses struggle with. So how do you ask for reviews? Okay. And so again, I'm going to point out that a lot of the things that I talk about may or may not be 100% applicable to your business, and that's okay. It's really hard to have a webinar that really applies to all the different types of businesses that are going to be tuning in. I know that a lot of the businesses that do join these webinars tend to be kind of in the home services industry or contractors. And a lot of these tips are going to apply more easily to those types of businesses and industries. However, definitely adapt anything I recommend as needed for your business. And a lot of these things are also going to depend on how much interaction you have with your customers, period. So the number one thing that I recommend, if you do nothing else, if you take nothing else away from this webinar, is whenever possible, ask for the review at the point of service. That's it. That is going to be when your customer is going to be the happiest with your business, with whatever product or service you provided for them, of course, with the caveat that there was nothing that went wrong, right? So you didn't provide them with a faulty product or everything, you provided the service that you told them you were going to provide. But if everything went well, right at that point of service, that's going to be when they're the happiest. And this is actually a good time to think about how you interact with businesses in general, and think about all the businesses you've interacted with in the past week or two, and how many of those businesses you had a fairly pleasant experience with. If you're like most people, that's going to be a majority of the time. I think for most of us, unless we just have really bad luck, whenever we interact with businesses in our day-to-day lives, most of those interactions are going to be fairly positive, right? So you go get gas station is working just fine. Maybe you go inside to grab a snack. Cashier's fairly friendly, nothing that stands out negatively. Maybe you have lunch with a friend. The food was fine at the restaurant. Server was friendly enough. Maybe you have your car checked out, all of those things. And most of your interactions are going to be positive. But when you think about that, it's probably the most positive right when you're receiving the product or the service. And depending on what it was, maybe even an hour later, you've already forgotten kind of how pleasant that interaction was. And this is kind of what we want to take advantage of, is that feeling right at the conclusion of the service or product that was provided. And I say that because if you try to remember the most recent negative experience you had with a business, the feelings you have towards that particular interaction are probably stronger than you'd care to admit, and probably stronger than even a more recent experience you had with the business that ended up being positive. And so, especially if you're trying to get positive feedback from your customers, it's important to ask them at the point of service. If somebody had a less than stellar experience with your business, they probably don't need a lot of encouragement to talk about or write about their negative experience online even. And so really asking at the point of service is really good for those great experiences you have with customers that they're just not going out of their way to write about. Okay. And then a really good example of that and how to ask for a review at the point of service is something I call the perfect walk. Now, this is easiest to apply, again, for those contractor types of businesses where you are having a face-to-face interaction with the customer, and it's usually at a job site, most likely at a customer's home or maybe even their place of business. And it goes something like this. So you've just finished, let's say, cleaning the carpet for a homeowner. Finish it up, you know you did a great job, everything looks great. You go up to the homeowner and you ask them, or you let them know that online reviews have become really important to your business, and would you please leave them a review? And again, according to studies and just from probably what you can guess, more often than not, they're going to say sure. Okay. At that point, that is when you walk away as a business owner or employee. You don't have to leave the job site. And in fact, I encourage you to double check your work. And that's why I call it the perfect walk, because this is your opportunity to not only give your customer a little bit of space to write you that review, but to also double check and make sure that whatever it is that you did for them does meet your standards as a business. So, you know, you didn't leave any equipment behind, you're not leaving a mess, all of that. Just take a few minutes, double check your work, so that ideally by the time you get back to your customer, they've already left your review. And you didn't have to stand there and watch them write it, which can be awkward both for you and for the customer. You're watching them write a review. It could influence the, you know, the honesty of the review because you're watching them, and it's just it's not the most unawkward experience to have either from the business or the consumer side. So again, what makes this approach particularly helpful is the app that we're going to talk about later on in the webinar fits perfectly into this kind of approach, because when you ask a customer to leave you a review, you're still asking them to take a few steps to get to where you want them to write that review. So when it comes to, for instance, asking them for a review on bbb.org, even if you're walking away and double checking your work, they still have to somehow get to your BBB profile to leave your review without any prompting from you. And so we have a solution for that I will talk about at length later on in the webinar that fits right in with the tips that I'm discussing right now. Okay. And then just kind of as a general rule, it makes it a lot easier for your entire team to make asking for reviews a part of your process. That way they don't have to make any decisions, right? So if they get into the habit of asking for reviews, let's say every time they finish a job or some sort of benchmark, makes it a lot easier on them. It makes it a lot easier on you. It's easier to hold them accountable. And there really isn't anything that prevents you from asking for reviews just as part of your process is, you know, submitting payroll or clocking in, clocking out, or if you have different sales steps that you have your sales team follow. So just incorporating it into your day-to-day makes it infinitely easier for everybody involved. Okay, do we have any questions? Just want to make sure. Doesn't seem like we do. So I will continue. Okay. One thing I want to point out as we're talking about asking for reviews is you absolutely do not want to ever offer money, discounts, or gifts to your customers in exchange for writing reviews. There's a few reasons for this. I don't know if you guys follow the Federal Trade Commission, but they have been considering a rule, like a policy change essentially, to impose a fine on businesses that actually take part in this type of kind of incentive in exchange for an online review. And the reason they do that is because they believe that reviews that are written in exchange for something imply that the reviews are not honest. And so, of course, if you're getting something to write a business a review, chances are the review is probably going to be more positive than you wanted it to be, or not quite 100% representation of your actual experience with the business. And that's exactly what the FTC wants to avoid, is that kind of erosion of that marketplace trust between consumers and businesses, where consumers feel like they can't trust anything that's written online about businesses because everything has been influenced. By that same token, the Better Business Bureau also does not allow that, and that is also against their policy. So it's against, the FTC highly discourages it, and they're considering whether or not they should even impose fines for doing that. It's against the Better Business Bureau's policies, and it's against the terms of service for a lot of these major review sites. So if you write or if you ask for a review from a customer in exchange for giving them a coupon off their next service, and it's something that you were caught doing, the best thing that can happen is that particular review is deleted. That's the best thing that can happen. There's definitely worse things that can happen to your business. I've seen it. Yelp particularly is fond of putting warning labels on business profiles of businesses that don't abide by their rules. So one of the things that they'll put on a profile is, this business has been caught exchanging something for reviews. And of course, a consumer sees that and they'll come to their own conclusions about just how authentic those reviews are. And it could just be that only one of your reviews was, written in exchange for a discount. But again, the best thing that can happen is that particular review is deleted, but you can get a warning put on your profile. You might even be banned from receiving further reviews on that particular review site. And so, long story short, just don't do it. Couple of other best practices in terms of making sure that you are successful in maintaining your online reputation using online reviews from your customers. The first thing is, give everybody in your company the ability to request reviews. Great news, if you're an accredited business, the app that we're going to discuss today does just that. So, and I say that everybody should have the ability to request reviews. At the very least, everybody who has an interaction with a customer or potential customer, just because so much of our experience with businesses, again, think of you as a consumer, not as somebody who's a business owner or helps runs a business, is colored by the people within that business we interact with. And sometimes all it takes is either one person that goes above and beyond, or one person that is particularly rude, to color our entire experience, even if the rest of our interactions with the other people in that company aren't the exact same, right? And so that's why I encourage giving everybody the ability to request reviews. Another thing is putting one person or department in charge of reviews. And again, this is, really dependent on how much staff you have and how big your team is. At the very least, making it one person's responsibility makes it so much easier for everybody else, because then they know it's just that one person, right? So I've seen this where a negative review will come in about a business, and pretty much everybody in the business has seen it, but no one really knows who's supposed to address it or reach out to the customer or respond to it. And so it just goes unresponded to. And the customer, nobody reaches out to the customer because nobody's sure whose role it really is to do that, which is why I encourage having somebody doing that, even if that's not necessarily their only role. Making that one person's responsibility makes it a lot easier for everybody else. So they're not trying to figure out, okay, well, this person's supposed to respond, or this person was supposed to respond. Okay. And then, related to the first couple, plus some of the stuff I talked about earlier, is holding your employees accountable, not just for requesting the reviews, but for the reviews that they do receive. Again, the app that's available to accredited businesses has a dashboard that allows you to track everybody who's requesting reviews on behalf of your company. And so you can see not only who's requesting reviews like they're supposed to, but the types of reviews that those employees are getting. And I think, again, the accountability applies to both things, because you might have somebody that, yes, they're doing what they're supposed to, asking for reviews regularly, but all their reviews are negative. So, that probably merits a conversation with that particular person, if that's the case. Okay, related to that is incentivizing your employees. We talked about not incentivizing your customers at all. And I do want to point out, when it comes to incentivizing your customers, which I didn't address on the previous slide, and I apologize, is there could be an exception to this. And you've probably seen it. It's pretty common in kind of the health, wellness, beauty space, where a company will let either a sample product or a sample of a product or a full-size product, give that away to some of their customers, certain customers, for free in exchange for their honest feedback about that particular product. Usually it's a product they wouldn't have offered before. And in those cases, which again, you've probably already seen, the customer is required to explicitly say that they were given this product free of charge in exchange for their honest feedback. So that is an exception to that don't incentivize your customers rule. However, I would still tread carefully when it comes to that. And I would definitely keep an eye out on what FTC decides for that particular practice. Okay, but again, you don't want to incentivize your customers. You can absolutely reward your employees. And it's easy to do that when you're giving everybody the ability to request reviews. You are putting one person in charge of reviews, you're holding them accountable, you're tracking who's requesting reviews, and it's part of their day-to-day. So it just makes sense to kind of have a reward system. And it could be something pretty simple. We have businesses that are pretty successful with this. Something like, the person that has requested the most reviews at the end of the week gets free lunch, or the person with the most positive reviews at the end of the month gets some sort of prize. Maybe for each 4 or 5-star review an employee gets, they get a raffle ticket, and then you hold a raffle quarterly for some really cool things. Maybe it's an Apple Watch or, an Apple TV, something like that. Again, to incentivize them to continue to get great feedback, not just to request the feedback, but to make sure that the feedback they're getting is great, which means, continue to perform at the high level, whatever your standard is as a business. And the nice part about the app is it lets you track all of that, which gives you insight into some employees' performance that maybe you didn't realize. The nice thing about this app is even if the customer doesn't explicitly state the employee that they had an interaction with, which I think if you read most online reviews, it doesn't really name the employee that's responsible for most of the customer interaction. And in fact, BBB doesn't actually allow specifically naming employees because they consider that to be personal information. But without that piece of information, it's hard to kind of see which of your team members are consistently getting great feedback from your customers. And this app will let you see, okay, even if Sally is not explicitly named in any of these reviews, it was Sally who requested all of them, and she's the one that's getting all these 5-star reviews at a rate higher than everybody else, right? And so just something like that, I think, will definitely give that morale boost to your team and make it a little bit easier for everybody to be committed to making sure you get great reviews as a company. Then, of course, have an effective follow-up strategy. Again, having one person or department in charge of reviews will help with that, and not just following up with the people that didn't leave a review even though you requested a review, but also those that maybe had a less than 5-star experience with your company. Okay, I'll stop here and see if anybody has any questions about anything covered so far. Usually I get a couple of questions about the rewarding your employees thing. And I'll also point out that I'm sure you've seen a business do that. I see businesses do it all the time. That doesn't mean you should do it. And if those businesses do get caught, and they will eventually, there are definitely consequences for what they are doing. So, okay. We talked about the importance of reviews and the best practices in terms of continuing to get great reviews from your customers. So now you have a review. What do you do? Right? So this next section is about responding to reviews, which, as we saw earlier in the presentation, customers are starting to put a lot of emphasis on as well. Some very quick do's and don'ts, no means an exhaustive list. A lot of these are going to seem like common sense until you take the time to read some responses from businesses online to some of their customer reviews, and then you realize pretty quickly that maybe these tips aren't as common sense as they appear at first glance. So anyway, do respond to all your reviews. I think we talked about that earlier, that 89% of consumers are likely to use a business that's responding to all of their reviews. Easiest thing you can do. I think it's tempting to just respond to the negative reviews because that's the one that you actually have a response to. But please don't forget your positive reviewers. It's very easy to just say a quick thank you. We appreciate your great feedback, or we appreciate your loyalty. We appreciate the opportunity to do business with you. I would say that the hardest thing probably to respond to is a neutral review. Even so, you have to respond to all your reviews. Okay. Do be courteous and polite. Again, you'd think it goes without saying, you would be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't. And it's definitely important to keep this in mind when responding to an unflattering review of your business. Because when you respond, your audience is not just the person who left that review, it's the internet at large. So your current customers and your potential customers are seeing how you're responding to this particular review. It's just better to always be courteous and polite. And you never know, this is your opportunity to also bring back a disgruntled customer, especially if it's a customer that you did not realize had a negative experience with your business, and this is the first time you're seeing it in this review. This is that opportunity to bring them back, but not if you don't respond courteously and politely, right? Okay. And related to that is go ahead and apologize. And by that, I don't necessarily mean admit wrongdoing. Sometimes I know that there's legal ramifications to that depending on what's being alleged in a customer review. And I'm not here to tell you that you have to admit wrongdoing per se, but there's nothing wrong with apologizing for the experience that your customer had with your business. Because if somebody had a negative experience with your business, I'm assuming that that is something that's not standard, right? So that's not your goal. So you can say that. You can say, I'm sorry, or that you had a frustrating experience with their business. That is not what we strive for as a business. And we want to make sure every customer comes away happy. So we're sorry, for having, the experience that you had, or we're sorry for your frustration. Just acknowledging that can go a long way, not just, again, with the customer that's frustrated, but also with a lot of the current and potential customers. Just a little tidbit here. I like to read negative reviews, even if the reviews themselves aren't going to sway my opinion, because doing what I do, I take a lot of negative reviews in general with a grain of salt, but that's why you read several of them, because you can tell when one or two people just kind of had a fluky experience versus it being a pattern with a particular business, right? But especially negative reviews, I like to take with a grain of salt, unless you see a pattern. But what I like about negative reviews is seeing how the business responds to it. And I'm sure you've seen that too. And businesses that respond in a way that's apologetic, and really want to make it right for the customer, I think in a lot of ways that can be more powerful than a 5-star review. So that just keep that in mind when you have a negative review, that you can absolutely leverage that into something positive for your business, just based on how you respond to it. And then I'm sure you've also seen reviews that have been updated. I've seen that where they'll say, this was a 1-star, but the business made it right for me, and now I'm updating my review to a 5-star review. So again, that's why in terms of these tips, I want you guys to keep all of that in mind, and I want you to keep in mind your behavior as a consumer when you come across those types of things from businesses. On the flip side, don't get emotional or defensive. I know that's easier said than done, especially if it's somebody trashing your business, especially a business that you've held near and dear to your heart for decades. I get it. If you are the type of person that to have that kind of reflexive response, I recommend waiting at least 24 hours to respond. Normally, I encourage responding as quickly as possible to any reviews you receive, whether they're negative or positive, because the longer the negative reviews out there without a response, the more damage it could potentially do. However, no response is certainly better than a defensive or emotional or just rude response, right? So again, if you're the type of person that does that, write out a response. Email it to yourself, whatever, write it down just to kind of get that out. Kind of a Dear John letter, but for a negative review. And then wait a day or so. And then once you've calmed down, then you can tackle that negative review. Because again, while ideally you would respond as soon as you can, a non-response is always better than a very angry response. And if there's a 2 or 3 day delay, but the response is courteous and polite, the benefits of that is going to be much greater than responding right away, but you were defensive and emotional. So just keep that in mind. Don't go into too much detail or make it personal. Again, everybody is watching or reading these reviews and your responses to them. Some review sites will let you go back and forth with a customer. You certainly do not want that. And you don't want to be debating the issue online or having personal attacks against the customer. Whenever possible, always offer to address it off their view platform. So offer an email, a phone call, what have you, but you don't want to go into too much detail or start attacking the reviewer personally. And in some industries, you can't even really go into that much detail anyway. I know financial services, there's a lot of regulations surrounding personal information. Same thing in the medical industry. There's HIPAA laws and other types of privacy laws, depending on your state and local laws. So just be mindful of that too when you're responding. And then another thing is just don't speculate. If it's not clear why somebody was upset, there's no reason to speculate. There's a chance that this person wasn't even really a customer of yours. And that's a possibility. And you can respond to that and say, I'm not seeing you as somebody who was one of our customers or somebody we had an interaction with. Do you mind contacting us so-and-so so we can get more information? That would be a great way to address that. BBB is a great way to address reviews that you're not sure came from somebody that you actually had a marketplace interaction with, which I'll talk about in just a couple of slides. And again, always offer to communicate off the platform just so people aren't watching this unfold in real time. Okay. So questions? Yes.
Real quick, I just have a question in regards to past reviews. So if people have reviews from the past a year or 2 years ago, how far back should they go if they wanted to respond now to them?
So this is a great question, and I get it all the time. In fact, I should probably just include it in the presentation in terms of responding. It really just depends on how many reviews they currently have, right? So if you currently have like 50 reviews and only 2 of those reviews are recent, it might make sense to respond to your old reviews until you get newer reviews. So at least it looks like you've responded to the reviews. However, if you have an overwhelming number of reviews that are recent, then I would just respond to the recent ones and then kind of take it a little bit at a time to see how far back you go. I would always prioritize the recent reviews over the older reviews. And reviews really older than 2 years, I wouldn't even bother responding to at that point. And I would just focus on getting newer reviews. But when they're around a year old, you could say something like, acknowledge that, drop the ball not responding to this sooner, but we really appreciate you taking the time to leave us a great, especially if it's a positive review. And then if it's a negative review, I would still apologize if it's an old review and just say, it might be too late, but I do encourage you to reach out. Or if we can find your information, I will have somebody on our team reach out and make sure that whatever it is that made them unhappy, essentially they're satisfied with. So that's a great question. And again, it really depends on how many reviews you currently have to respond to. And if you have a lot of recent reviews, if you want to just start tackling these really old reviews, and really older than a year, I wouldn't even bother and just focus on getting new reviews. Hopefully, does that answer that question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Great. Okay, so this next section, I'll make it quick. It's really more just breaking down the differences between 4 major review sites. And I focus on the more generic review sites and not the industry specific ones, just because that's a webinar all on its own. I mean, I could have 100 pages on all the different review sites out there. So, and what I'll do here is just kind of summarize. I won't read the bullet points off the page, and I'll actually stay a little bit longer on some of the pages. So if you wanted to take a screenshot or take more detailed notes, you can. I'll also be making this presentation available to Jenny and her BBB. And so she'll distribute it, I'm assuming, to everybody who attended or registered or who's interested in this information. Okay. The first thing that I want to point out is consumers trust Better Business Bureau reviews the most. And again, the volume of reviews, that goes to Google. A big part of that is because they have the search engine, so they have a pretty unfair advantage over the other review sites. However, what's interesting is everything else being equal, a consumer will still trust a BBB review the most. And I think that's great news. I think that's because the BBB torch still carries kind of that implication of integrity with customers. But the nice part about this is that means that one BBB review can have an outsized impact on your online reputation. So I think the fact that most reviews go to Google, or they're more likely to use Google, can also work against Google's favor because they have a volume of reviews. And so it's not enough to have 10 or even 20 Google reviews. You have to have like 100 Google reviews because that's what people are starting to expect, right? With BBB reviews, fewer reviews can make more impact. So maybe you only need 5 or 10 BBB reviews to have the same effect as 50 Google reviews, just because of the type of trust that a BBB review garners from a customer. So that's what's nice about that is, one BBB review can have kind of a dramatic impact on a consumer's perception of your business, which is why I think it's really important to focus on BBB reviews, even if you're getting reviews on other review sites, okay? All right. And the nice part about BBB is there's not an account required to leave a review. That's especially, I think, important for businesses that tend to have an older customer base. So, there's definitely types of businesses where their customers skew older, like an older demographic. Home health businesses is one of those. And so the nice part about this is they don't have to sign up for a separate account on BBB in order to be able to leave a review. And BBB does not allow anonymous reviews, which again, only contributes to that perception by the consumer that BBB reviews have more integrity than other reviews. And BBB does require the customer to verify their information. So if it's not their phone number, then it's email address. It's their email address. So it's either one or the other. BBB also allows at least 3 business days before the review is published. And again, while there's businesses that actually want the review to be posted immediately, number one, if you're getting a regular influx of reviews, it doesn't matter anymore. So once you kind of start getting BBB reviews, a review you get today will be posted in 3 or 4 days, but then maybe the reviews you got a few days ago are now getting posted today. So really, if you're getting regular BBB reviews, that wait time makes less of a difference. But what is great about it is it allows the business time to respond to a review before the review is published. And that's especially helpful if it was a less than stellar review, right? Because for every other review site, the negative review always gets lead time over the business's response. Even if you respond pretty close to immediately, that review would have been up there just long enough for somebody to read it because it was long, it was up there long enough for you to read it and respond to it. So again, what's nice about the BBB is it gives you time to respond as a business to every review you receive, and both the review and the response are published simultaneously. So any less than negative or less than positive reviews about your business don't get, that kind of extra time being online to be read. Okay. And this is kind of what I was talking about in terms of the review sites. and the differences between them. Again, you could take a screenshot if you would like. One thing is all of these require accounts. Facebook, for a business to get Facebook reviews, they must have reviews enabled on their Facebook page. Yelp has a very annoying review algorithm, and I call it annoying because it's not transparent what goes into it. You might have experienced it as a business. I know we have businesses that complain about Yelp all the time. What it really means is not all your reviews that are submitted to Yelp are going to factor into your Yelp review rating. And what makes this frustrating for businesses is if the reviews that are factored into the rating are their negative ones, and then it's their positive ones that get filtered. So the way that Yelp presents that is there's certain reviews that they recommend, and there's certain reviews that they don't recommend. Now, people can still access your non-recommended reviews. They just have to go an additional step where it says, read reviews that are currently not being recommended. And again, those reviews do not factor into a rating. And so if you have somebody that's only looking for 4-star rated businesses or higher on Yelp, and your Yelp rating is at a 2-star, even though you have scores of 5-star reviews that aren't being recommended, that can be really frustrating. So I just want to point that out. The nice part about that is just because a review is not recommended today doesn't mean it's going to stay that way tomorrow. And just because we've been working in this industry for as long as we have, I've been doing reviews for 12 years now, which is actually a really long time. So we do have an idea, kind of the things that will help with the Yelp algorithm. If that is something that your business is struggling with, reach out to one of either myself or Emily after the webinar, or you can reach out to Jenny and her team, and she will make sure to get us your information. Keep this up a little bit longer if you guys want to take any notes. Okay. So basically, all this is culminating into talking about the app that BBB has partnered with the Review Solution, that's us, to provide accredited businesses with to specifically help with their customer reviews. And this app helps with BBB reviews, which again is great because number one, it doesn't take a lot of BBB reviews to have an impact, right? I'm not saying you shouldn't get a lot of them, but you start to see the effects even with just a handful of BBB reviews. And consumers trust BBB reviews the most. So this is what it looks like. Number one, the app is something you download as a business, and your employees can download it as well. So your customer does not have to download anything. I want to make that crystal clear. We get that question all the time. Does my customer have to do anything other than write the review? No. So they do not have to download this app. They don't even have to know an app exists, right? And the nice part about this is you open up the app, you put in the customer's name and the mobile number and hit send. Now think about this in the context of what I talked about earlier and the perfect walk, right? So if you're finishing up a job, you tell a customer, online reviews have become super important to our business. Please, would you mind leaving us a review? They'd say, no, of course not. I'd love to leave you a review. You take out this app. Conveniently, it's on your phone. You put in your customer's name, their mobile number, and hit send. And then when your customer gets that text, then you walk away and do the perfect walk and then come back. And this is the text that your customer receives. I'm going to go back in a second and talk about the ways that the app actually makes it even easier to get a review. But I just want to look at the text that the customer gets really quickly here. You can see that's their name. Thank you for choosing Third Coast Interactive. Would you be so kind as to leave us a BBB review? And that's it. And all they have to do is click that link to start writing the review. I'm going to back up here just to reiterate. So for you, the business, you don't have to do anything but put in the customer's name, phone number, send. Customer doesn't have to do anything. They just click the link that you send them. And it's actually even easier to type in your customer's name and number. The app has the ability to integrate with your address book. Now, you do have to give them permission to access the contacts on your phone. It's not required to do that. So if you'd rather not do that, you do not have to, and the app will function just as well. But in this case, if it's something that you would like to do, especially for those of you that have a separate phone to run your business, all your customer information is stored on this phone. All you have to do is enable the contact integration by clicking on the magnifying glass and hitting accept when it asks you if you want the app to access your address book. Start typing in the customer's name, and you can select from the drop down and send the text to that customer. So this cuts down on the typos, and it's very fast and easy. And whether you choose to enable that feature or not, like I said, the customer will just get the text and they just click the link to submit a review, and that's it. So for the customer, they just click the link and write the review. So why would you use the app? Again, all you have to do is customer name, mobile number, send. Your customer. Open the text, click the link, write the review. So really all you're leaving to your customer is writing the review itself. It skips all of that steps that, would be required if they were to write you a review on bbb.org if you ask them to, because they'd still have to search for your business and find your business, make sure they're selecting the correct business profile, find where on your profile to leave a review, and then leave the review. Whereas here, they're just clicking a link. Because it's a text, it tends to get a better response rate than emails. Think about your own behaviors towards text versus emails, and I think you'll understand that the text request is far more effective than an email request. Again, the nice part about this app is the reviews are going to come in as pre-verified, because BBB does verify reviews in the sense that they require the customer to verify their contact information. And what's nice about this is when you use the customer's mobile number to send that text, by clicking the link and being able to be taken to that BBB review survey, they're simultaneously validating their mobile number. And so that cuts down another step for your customer. And they don't have to take an additional step to verify their contact information, because clicking the link has already done that for them. And then, of course, tracking, we talked about being able to track all the review requests sent out by anyone within your company using the dashboard that automatically comes with the app. Really quickly, I just want to point out, so everything that you saw talking about the app is 100% free to you as an accredited business, and it's available to you today. I mean, you could get off this webinar and start using it, or even on the webinar, you could start using it if you wanted to. There is an upgraded version of the app if you're interested. I won't spend too much time on it. Just want to let you know that it's there, it exists. If you wanted to also get reviews on review sites like Google, Facebook, Yelp, HomeAdvisor, in addition to BBB, that is something we offer. There is an additional cost to that. So again, the app is otherwise free. So if you don't want all these premium features, it's 100% free to you as an accredited business to get reviews on bbb.org using the app. But again, this is something you're interested in, you can contact Jenny or myself or Emily, and we will reach out to you after the webinar and make sure you have more information on that. So I think the bottom line is reviews make you a better business. If they didn't, we wouldn't be doing this webinar, but I think that's why BBB recognizes that reviews are important to you as businesses. Positive reviews let you know what you're doing correctly and to keep doing. Negative reviews let you know what maybe you need to improve upon. If you're an accredited business and you want to get started with the Reviews app, you can log into your BBB business account or contact your local BBB rep. If you're not currently accredited and you're watching this webinar, you'd like more information on BBB accreditation, you can also reach out to your local Better Business Bureau office. And then if there's anything about on this webinar that you are interested in, you didn't have a chance to ask a question, there's our website, yourcustomerreviews.com. Oops, let me go back. There's our toll-free number, and you can also email support@thereviewsolution.com. And I'll have Emily drop in that information in the chat as well. Okay.
All right, thank you so much, Myra. Just real quick, we just wanted to let you guys know about some upcoming events that we do have. On March 6th, we have the PrivacyCon. This is featuring the Federal Trade Commission, and this is an all-day webinar from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. On April 20th, up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, we have our Shred event. And then just as a save the date, just for you to get on your calendar, is September 24th, our Torch Awards of Ethics Luncheon. And just a reminder, check us out throughout the year at bbbinc.org. Next slide, Myra. Thank you. Here's my contact information. Again, if you have any questions about today's webinar, please let me know. And if there's any presentation that you would like to see the BBB put on, please let me know, and I'd love to discuss those opportunities with you. Again, I'm Jenny Tukeski. On behalf of the BBB Midwest Plains, we thank all of you for coming and giving up an hour of your time today to join us, and we hope you're walking away ready to implement reviews within your business and organization. A special thank you to Myra as well for taking the time to discuss all of this information with us, the ins and outs of reviews and the positive impact it can have on a business, as well as everything that you do for the Bureau throughout the year too. As Myra mentioned earlier today, we will get out an email to you with a link to the webinar as well as this presentation information. And then lastly, just real quick, we have a QR code you can go ahead and scan for a survey. We would love your feedback on this. We are always trying to improve, be the best that we can. So please help us out with that. And if there's no other questions for Myra, hope everybody has a good day, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye.